What if two galaxies, one with our solar system inside, had a head-on collision? This is something that has never happened in the history of the universe, or at least we do and know of any collisions like this happening before, because it would be so catastrophic for us. But scientists have studied how it could happen and what the consequences would be. So let's say that in the middle of our galaxy, instead of a huge black hole, there was a medium-sized galaxy 50,000 light years wide and containing about 1 trillion stars. And just as it entered the border of our galaxy, another identical galaxy arrived from the other side. The first thing that would happen is that the two galaxies would orbit each other for a few million years while they pass through their closest points. During this time, the stars would continue to form in both galaxies as usual, but as time went by, chaos would begin. Since the galaxies are large enough to contain trillions of stars, they would not simply fall apart when they touch each other. It would be more like squeezing two balls of yarn together until some threads break. And when that happens, the stars would start flying away into interstellar space. Some would fly very fast and end up far beyond the boundaries of both galaxies. Others would simply move away from the center of the galactic collision, forming large shells. Then, many stars would fall into the deep gravitational wells formed between the two nuclei, and these wandering stars would become part of a thin disk in the middle of the collision zone. However, over billions of years, gravity would cause the remnants of the two galaxies to merge into one giant sphere. So if Earth were located in one of these galaxies, we would live in a strange period of chaos and destruction, but also of great changes. The path of the solar system, as it passed through the galactic core, would depend on its speed relative to the speed of other stars around it. If the Sun were moving slower than average, it could eventually fall into the galactic nucleus. If it were faster, it could leave the galaxy altogether. But most likely, the Sun would simply be deflected from its original course and perhaps end up in one of the galactic shells. Of course, the fact that our solar system would survive the collision itself would already be a miracle. That's because as the two galaxies approached, the Sun would suffer the same fate as those stars that wander around the galactic core. Our orbit would change dramatically, possibly taking us as close as 2,000 light years from the galactic core. We might even find ourselves flung into outer space for thousands or even millions of light years. During all this, the Earth would suffer even more. Its orbit around the Sun would become very eccentric, which means that the distance between the Earth and the Sun would vary greatly. 1 year would take only 27 days, and during part of the year, the Earth would be farther away from the Sun than Neptune, suffering extremely cold temperatures. This would probably lead to an ice age. In addition, the Earth's orbit might take it very close to the galactic core, and then the tidal forces of the galaxy would deform the planet until it became like a thick pancake. The worst thing would be the constant bombardment of asteroids and comets that would hit our planet. As the orbits of the solar system moved closer to the galactic core, the Earth would enter a region full of rocks and dust, and it would no longer be safe anywhere near our planet. But aside from these cataclysmic events, the solar system itself could also be destroyed. When passing through the core of the galaxy, the Sun could be captured by a black hole or a neutron star and torn to pieces by its tidal forces. If the Sun were somehow still intact after all this, it would find itself surrounded by a solar system full of debris. The planets would not withstand the tidal forces of the galaxies and would be either thrown into outer space or make very eccentric orbits around the Sun. Perhaps Mercury would fall directly into the Sun, while Venus and Earth would fly out of the solar system altogether. Mars would make a very long journey through interstellar space, while Jupiter could approach the galactic nucleus and be destroyed by the intense radiation. If we survived all this, we would wake up in a completely different universe. The two colliding galaxies would give rise to a new and greater galaxy. But not only that, the collision would also trigger the formation of several smaller galaxies, stars, and nebulae. everything would be very different. But even if none of this happened, even if the Sun continued its orbit as usual and the Earth remained exactly as it is now, we would still suffer the consequences of the collision. The light of tens of trillions of stars would suddenly appear in the night sky, and for a few million years, it would seem as if the Milky Way had become a giant swarm of fireflies. And although this might be beautiful at first, soon we would realize that those stars are hundreds or thousands of light years away, and therefore their light would not help us to illuminate the night. On the contrary, the radiation of all those stars would harm us, causing cancer and other diseases. But the main problem would be that the light from the stars would prevent us from seeing other objects in space, such as comets or asteroids. And that would be very dangerous because we would not be able to predict when the next celestial body would crash into Earth. It would also be impossible to use the stars to navigate. Without being able to see the constellations, people would get lost trying to travel across the sea or even through the desert. Worse yet, astronomers would not be able to use powerful telescopes. There would be too much light and cosmic radiation in the sky, and our instruments would not be able to function. For all these reasons, life on Earth would become much more difficult, and only a few thousand years later, things would begin to improve. In a few million years, the new galaxy would reach its stable state, and then the amount of starlight would gradually decrease until the sky became similar to what we see today. It would also take millions of years for the debris left by the collision to settle and the radiation levels to drop. Little by little, we could rebuild our world and even our solar system. Many planets would return to their original orbits, and the Earth would no longer be bombarded by asteroids. Perhaps over billions of years, life could arise again on our planet. But the collision would also have consequences for the entire universe. You see, all the galaxies in the observable universe are moving away from each other. And if the expansion of the universe slows down, sooner or later they will begin to collide with each other, generating new and larger galaxies. These collisions would also trigger the formation of stars, nebulae, and planets. And the energy released could reactivate the fusion of matter in the cores of stars that have already turned into white dwarfs, making them shine again as new suns. All this could generate a new Big Bang and a new universe full of galaxies, stars, planets, and life. Or maybe everything would collapse even more until it all becomes part of a gigantic black hole. And then space and time would cease to exist, but for now, we can rest easy. Scientists estimate that the next galaxy to collide with ours will be the Triangulum Galaxy in 30 billion years. And we know this because we can observe the universe in space and time. But do you know what we can't observe? The past. Human beings have always been interested in the past. What did our ancestors do? How did our species evolve? What major events have shaped humanity? These are questions that we ask ourselves all the time. And now you have the opportunity to explore the past thanks to a documentary platform where you can find the best documentaries about history. This platform brings together more than 1,000 documentaries about almost every topic related to the history of humanity and our world. For example, right now I am watching the documentary The First Americans, which explores the theory that the first inhabitants of the American continent came from Siberia 14,000 years ago. It's amazing to see how a massive glacier covered most of Canada and the United States. And it's incredible to discover how the first inhabitants followed herds of animals across the Bering Strait land bridge, which connected Siberia and Alaska. That's why Curiosity Stream offers a wide variety of topics within history, such as art, archaeology, conflicts, science, technology, and much more. Also, if you love reading, you can combine your subscription with a digital magazine service where you will find over 1,000 magazines and 6,000 books. You will get access to thousands of historical documentaries, and you lines get to learn about our world's past. Thank you very much for watching this video. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. See you next time.